like to call to order the Richmond City School Board meeting for Monday, April 20th, 2015. Madam Clerk.
Will the board members who are present please respond? Mr. Sturtevant?
Here.
Ms. Gray? Here. Mr. Boone?
Here.
Mrs. Larson? Here. Ms. Taylor? Mrs. Harris Muhammad? Mr. Coleman?
Here.
Dr. Jones? Ms. Pinckney Epps? You have a form, Mr. Chair.
We'll be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by our student. I'll stand. Now, we move this out, please. Thank you very much.
The next item is the adoption of the agenda, and I do have several changes under recognitions. 2.04, that will be deferred. Under 4, your academic improvement items, 4.03 will be deleted at this time. And on 4.02, the wording will be received recommendation. And 5.01 under budgetary items will also be deleted at this time. Those are the only amendments I have at this time.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Bourne and seconded by Mr. Sturtevant to adopt the agenda as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
Any oppositions? Any abstentions? The agenda has been amended as approved. The next item is recognitions.
Mr. Chairman and board members, we'd like to take this opportunity to recognize a number of our spring sport athletic teams. First up is Thompson Middle School boys basketball team. They won the middle school championship. We have members of Thompson Middle School team. Standing where you are, and then they will make arrangements to take a group picture with you. Ms. Ramsey, where do you want to have that done? Out in the corridor? Okay. If you would, raise your right hand as I recognize you by name. If I screw up your name, you can jump me later out in the hallway, okay? Nalij Riley, Isaiah Richardson, Devontae Harris, Tavell Gary, Kaylin Himmel, is it Tommy or Tommy? Sexes? How do you say that? Kari Smith, Tashawn Stitt, Talik Taylor, Dwayne Watkins, Jaheen Stokes, Akichi Shantilo. Did I get that close? Marcus Leisure, Malik Richardson, Talik Bryant, Ty Lacey, and the student team managers, Deshaun Harris and Shaquan Hopkins. Congratulations to the Thompson Middle School boys basketball team for winning the middle school championship. Coaching, Andy Julian, Lemmy Aconte, Douglas Scroggins, Jerry Gunter, and of course the principal, Ms. Joy Lowry, who was on leave today, so I don't think she's here. Again, congratulations again. If you all could join Mrs. Ramsey out in the corridors, and any parents here supporting their student athletes. And audience, please stand. Please feel free to step out if you would like a shot with your son. They'll be more than happy to take a picture also of you with your student athlete.
Dr. Bennett, before you go to your next recognition, let the record reflect you've been joined by Ms. Taylor, Ms. Pinckney, and Dr. Jones. And is there anyone here who needs interpretive services?
Si alguien necesita intérprete, por favor, levante la mano.
The next recognition, Mr. Chairman and board members, is the Armstrong Boys and Girls Indoor Track Team. Specifically, if she would please stand and then first, and then the rest of the team members when I call you. Caitlin Scott. Okay, that is not Caitlin Scott, but the principal will stand in. But just to tell you a little bit about Caitlin Scott won the high jump with 3A state title and the indoor track state championships, giving her 2 state titles in 2 years. She also won outdoor hurdles last year. Her teammates include Monisha Williams, Trey Young, Micaiah, is that right? Watts, Ashley Watts, Crystal Childs, Spring Bryant, Brianna Wilkerson, Matia Neville, Zykeria Guy, Tarita Hall, and Brooklyn Battle. On the boys' side was Kyle Jacobs, Robert Alexander, Rashad Hood, DeAndre Moore, Khalil Newsom, Richard Anderson, Rashawn Edward, and David Witcher. And Mrs. Hawkins, I have no idea. Yusufu Ibrahim, Jordan Poindexter, and Blight Davis. Coaches were Tim Crossan, Conference 26 Coach of the Year, and Kevin Middleton, Conference 26 Coach of the Year. Any parents here for the Armstrong Boys and Girls Track Team or the Armstrong Girls Basketball Team, please stand. If you would please join Ms. Ramsey out in the corridor and outside. She'll be taking pictures.
Let the record reflect you've been joined by Mrs. Harris Muhammad.
Ms. Lovelace, you can go ahead and drop the screen for this next one. At this time, we'd like to recognize the George Wythe Boys Basketball Team Varsity Bulldogs. Gentlemen, if you would please rise. George Wythe was the Conference 26 tournament champions, the 3A East regional champions, and the second time is the charm, 3A state boys basketball champions. Of specific note is Malik White, who was Conference 26 and 3A East Regional Player of the Year and First Team. Raise your hand. Gentlemen, if you could raise your right hand when I recognize you individually. Maurice Coleman, Eric Cruz, Brandon Holly, Kareem Horton Jr., Jamal Anderson, Traquan Bell, Stiles Salmon, and Malik Nelson, Richard Sanders, Jeremiah Huff. Our coaches, the legendary Willard Coker. Coach Coker is Conference 26 and 3A East Regional Coach of the Year. Assistants, Reginald Goodwin, Kareem Horton Sr., Brian Underwood. Principal Reba Green, and Athletic Director Sherby Barnes. Board members, for your viewing, they're not here yet, but as done last year, we are proud to recognize our two-peat, and hopefully it'll be a three-peat, not making any predictions of which team, but for Richmond Public Schools. Second repeat, having the state champions coming out of the city, and this year's team will also receive a championship ring for all of the team members and identified coaches. Behind you on display, ladies and gentlemen, is a model mock-up of the championship ring that each player will receive. Any parents in the audience support the Bulldogs? Is there a second slide that you all have also to show the other view? Can't see what you're saying. Okay. At this time, gentlemen, congratulations. If you would join Ms. Ramsey out in the hallway, so she'll take the team photo. From Huguenot High School, representing girls indoor track. Shantae Harris. Shantae Harris here? Not yet, but their athletic director is here. Shantae Harris was awarded for the conference 26 champion and 2015 indoor state champion for the 55 hurdles. Congratulations to Shantae. Girls basketball. Is it Taya? Taya Robinson. Taya Robinson, girls basketball, being recognized for being Conference 26 Player of the Year. First team All Region, 3A East and Region 3A East Player of the Year. I'm going to guess that's a proud parent or guardian sitting next to her. Behind her. Please stand and be recognized also. Congratulations. If you could join Ms. Ramsey so she can get your photo. Thank you. John Marshall, girls basketball team, Lady Justices. John Marshall girls basketball team, Lady Justices. They were the Conference 26 tournament champions and 3A East regional champions. And Mr. Coleman, if I could, to young ladies, take a point of privilege. I do want to say to you, and I don't know if you got my message, but board members and audience, you see how many young ladies are there. You represented us well. I sat through that game and watched you all, with a small number of young ladies, fight to the finish. While they had a lot more players in a deeper bench, you held your own, and I hope you know that I'm thoroughly proud of you, and I hope that you all will go recruit others, because all you needed was somebody to give you a blow every now and then. So keep up the good work, and you know what? They say small things come, big things come in small packages. I'm gonna say great things came in small numbers, and you all represented us greatly. Thank you so much. Sheena Banks, Zanaya Butler, Jasmine Carter, Deja Joyner, did I get that right? Lateria Luster, Nadine Pope, Miss Wingfield, Dejani Wingfield. Coaches are Travis Richardson, who was selected as the 3A Regional Coach of the Year. Congratulations. And then your parents, here representing John. Thank you. If you would join Ms. Ramsey in the back quarter so she can get your team picture. Yes, sir. Coach, would you all state runners up also? You used all the semifinals, correct? Yes, thank you.
I just wanted to say, Sheena Banks, she was second team all conference 26. Terry Lester, she was first team conference 26, first team all 3A East region, and first team all 3A East state.
Mr. Gardner, you can let the screen up, the light, if we're done with the screen. Final recognition and the notes I have are for the Phi Lambda Theta Educational Honor Society Scholarship and Book Awards, representing John Marshall High School. Okay. Randashaw Nickens from John Marshall, are you here? Randasia. I apologize. And representing Community High School, Mia Hardy, or is it Maya? Mia or Maya? Mia Hardy from Community High School. Principal, you got to stand up and represent. I see the principal there. Yeah, you can stand up and represent. Any parents joining the students? Congratulations.
Student athletics and activities at John Marshall on behalf of Randy.
Next, if you could join Ms. Ramsey, she can take a picture.
Mr. Chairman, point of personal privilege. That is my organization that offered those 2 scholarships. I just wanted to share that. Very proud of those young ladies. Woo!
Mr. Chairman, that is all recognitions that I have in front of me. So, nothing else? Turn it back over.
Next item on the agenda is public information. We do have one speaker who signed up in advance. What is your pleasure, Mr. Chair?
Okay, individuals, 3 groups, 5 minutes. Thank you.
Mr. Calfani?
Mr. Chairman, Madam Vice Chair, members of Richmond School Board, Mr. Superintendent. My name is King Salim Kalfani, 1100 Ridge Cliff, Richmond, Virginia, 23224, the 8th District. And I'm here to say thank you for those who responded to my communication. This is a very serious matter. For the record, I've always been an advocate for Richmond Public Schools and its students. And so I come to you with 30 years of experience, and I was in a meeting as an advocate, and I've never been involved in a meeting that had that kind of temper. And it was of such import that I thought I would reach out and write members of the board, members of the administration. I've dealt with at least 8 complaints on other issues, and I've never had to reach out to you before. And so I just want to convey that it is a very serious matter of how that was conducted, and I would appreciate any help that this family can give. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Madam Vice Chair, ladies and gentlemen. Marty Jewell, wearing two hats tonight, one as chairman of the Education Committee in NAACP Richmond Branch. The other is Richmond Coalition for Quality Education. Here to say again, I applaud you. Unlike previous board, you asked for the money. This is high holy budget season. I don't know how you're going to get it if you don't ask for it. Not only did you ask for it with a level of specificity that I've not seen in a long time. And so again, I applaud you. It's our job as citizens and your constituents to help you get that money. And efforts are underway in various ways to see if we can help out in that regard. I was very pleased to see so many turnouts this past Saturday asking for state funding. Magnificent rally, well attended and well done. And so both NAACP and the coalition will work diligently to see if we can get clear perspective among our council members that you've done what you're supposed to do. You have, superintendent has presented an academic improvement plan that deserves a shot. But nobody in their right mind could imagine that you could let schools go for 2 decades. That's a generation, y'all, of not giving the best for our kids, and at the same time think that we can fix it for free. Ain't gonna happen. And so, thank you again. The other part, though, is that there's still outstanding grievance. I've talked with you, Mr. Chairman, before, other members. When I learned that your disciplinary committee misses scheduled meetings because you don't have enough folks. Children out of school for 4 months because you don't have enough folks. That's a huge breakdown and more damage being done to children. And again, the only way to eliminate the grievance that has created firestorms over and over again is to reduce the grievance and show some equity and balance. I'm asking that you reinstate Ms. Epps because you need her. You need all hands on deck. Y'all are busy. You got a lot to do. And these kids can't be shortchanged simply because you fail to act. So I'm urging you again, we've got a real shot here working together. Those grievances have generated other issues that can be completely eliminated if in fact we're all working together. There needs to be a community effort at fixing what's been broke in our school system. Y'all can't do it by yourself. I ain't asking, I'm telling you. You already know it, because if you did, or could, you'd have done it way before now. So we all need to put our shoulder to the plow. All aspects of society in this city if we're going to make a real difference. But we can't get there unless you're given what you need to get this job done. So we're behind you all the way, but we're behind you in this urgent call. You need all hands on deck, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Good evening, School Board Chair Coleman, Vice Chair Larson, Superintendent Bed, and all other members of the school board. My name is Charlotte Hare, President of the Richmond Education Association. I first would like to thank each and every one of you who have taken it upon yourself to support VEA's resolution and proclamation along with REA to put kids first. We thank you for helping us and coming out to our rally on Saturday, and we hope that you will continue to work with us as we press the issue forward as elections begin to occur. I continue to ask that we be mindful of how we treat people and the messages that we're sending out in the school division. If we continue to do what we have always done, we will get the same result. The reconstitution of MLK continues to be on my radar because it continues to raise questions about how we deal with difficult situations. You see, the way we deal with difficult situations is a representation of how well we deal with good situations. We need to be able to put ourselves in their shoes. What about the teachers who were moved there in December and January? How do you think they feel? If I were a new teacher at MLK and my students were performing well on the benchmarks and other assessments, and I had received good observations, I would be concerned to receive the non-renewal letter. Non-renewal indicates to people that I have not done my job as a teacher, but in fact I have. But my school is being reconstituted, and I was not selected to continue there because of the quota that had already been met for whatever the desired number was to stay at that school. How will this play out for us when we are trying to recruit new teachers to come to RPS? Who will read all the articles in the paper and understand what really happened? Will the best and the brightest want to come here and take a chance of going through the same thing? How can we continue to handle these situations in the same lackluster manner? You see, our future depends on us raising the bar on how we treat people who work for the school division. It is time to change the way we handle the business of people. It is a new day and a new way. Until we own it, change it, and practice it, the vicious cycle will continue to circle back around over and over again. Kindness, thoughtfulness, respect, and humility have always been excellent qualities in public service. Shouldn't we be about the business of demonstrating that for all of our children and employees on a daily basis? If not now, when? If not you, then who? Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the board this evening? Madam Clerk, seeing none.
The next item is item 4, academic improvement items. 4.01, receive an update on the mandated school improvement plan.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Okay. All right, first of all, I'm just going to give a very brief update on the status of corrective action plan for Thompson and the conditional agreement plans for Bouchard, Wick, and Armstrong. Very brief updates. We received at Thompson some special education report, and 2 items as noted in the Friday report were added to their corrective action plan in regards to scheduling and inclusion of ensuring to include special education teachers in the training that we were providing. We are still waiting the video audit debrief that will impact a couple of action items at each school. The lesson plan, rubric, data collection tool, and written procedures have been provided to the school. And we are continuing our professional development series that will end next Monday. And I'll give you a report out on that in terms of participants in May. And the data point for collection of special education data has been added to the quarterly report for each school. Are there any questions in regards to the update? Yes.
Service.
Ms. Garland, there are some other schools that have these lead turnaround partners. Do we anticipate receiving a report from them?
Yes, we just started the last lead turnaround partner to come on board, began last week. So what our office is doing is putting together a format for monthly reporting, and we'll be meeting with each of those lead turnaround partners. We're scheduling, my staff is scheduling one day each month. We're going to have a consistent report for all the vendors, and they will meet with us that day to review. We'll review their progress reports through our office, but meet with them individually in regards to the next steps and making sure we're on course. So I'll be happy to share those reports with you. We're meeting with them in May.
Dr. Jones.
I know you mentioned that you would be reporting to the board next month on the outcome of the professional development series, but I'm just curious, to date, in your estimation, have they been successful, well attended? What's the informal report on that?
We have pretty consistent attendance. We've covered all of the content required in the corrective action plan, and we have attendees from Wythe and Armstrong and Bouchard and Thompson. We have them separated on two campuses. We do reading and math at Bouchard, and we do science and history at Thompson. And pretty consistent. We'll also having a survey done online for feedback, so I'll share the results of that as well in regards to the perspective. But I'll get those attendance reports and that survey results for next month.
Very good. I look forward to it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much.
On a more pressing note,
Okay, Bertie.
I'd like to follow up with you on something that was reported in the Friday report last week, and provide a little bit more details, especially in the area of state accountability, and then just a glimpse at the federal accountability. Right now, we have 9 schools that are warned for the 3rd year. If they don't meet the accreditation benchmarks, fully meet them, not make improvement, but if they don't meet the 75 for English and the 70 for science, history, and math, they will go into year 4 of being warned, which requires us to go to the state board and ask for either a conditional accreditation, or in the case that we can't make a case for the school, they could be denied accreditation. Of the 9 schools, 5 of the schools are warned in all 4 contents. And they include, and you may want to pay very close attention to the names of some of these schools that are at this point: Benford, MLK, Richmond Alternative, and Elkhart. Warned in all 4 content areas, and you can estimate the likeliness that they'll make the benchmarks in all 4. Yes. 2 are warned in 2 areas: Lucille Brown and Amelia Street. So both of them would have to make it in both areas. And then we have 2 that are warned in 1 area, and that includes Patrick Henry and Franklin Military. And with those 2, even though those 2 are warned in only 1 area, in math, both of them, their English score, their 3-year average will fall off this year, and they did not meet the benchmark last year. So they could potentially, and let me explain this to you. If Franklin Military or let's say Patrick Henry, they were warned in math all this time. If they make it in math and they don't make it in social studies, history, it's still the 4th year. It doesn't matter. It's not the same content area. It's if you're warned in any content area. So That's the status of those schools, and it requires us to do a lot of work. We'll have to, do you want to wait till I finish for questions?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay. What we are required to do as a division for the 9 schools is we'll have to look at their preliminary data and determine if across grade levels, 6th grade math, 7th grade math, for instance, 8th grade math, algebra 1, we look at every single one of those content areas by grade level for which there is an assessment. These schools need to show improvement from last year in those areas, marked improvement. In addition, we have to look at the governance, the instructional programs, the staffing, and the student population. Because we have to make a case if the data, even if the data is pretty strong, we need to talk about, is there new governance at the school? Is there a new administrator? Is there a new administrative configuration? Is there a new instructional program at the school? Is there different staffing? Has something been done with the staffing? And then has the student population changed? So for instance, Benford, we could talk about a lot of those. Some of the schools that I've called off, we don't have a lot to talk about in any of those categories. If the state board makes the final decision. If the state board does not agree that we have made a case, the school will be denied. In addition, for the last thing in regards to that, in addition, we have 3 schools that were conditionally accredited last year, Shaw, Armstrong, and Whit. We have to go back every year before the state board and make the same case for them. So essentially, we're looking at making 12 presentations to the state board. The superintendent's in charge of this. And that's days of, because we go to the committee, then we go to the board meeting, and we go to the next board meeting. It ties us up a lot. It's a lot to work on. But if those, if the 3 conditional schools, or if you have a conditional school from one of these for next year, if they don't continue to make improvement, and we don't follow the reconstitution components that we've outlined, they can go into denied status. Okay. So that's my state side. You want to ask questions on the state side, because that's a little teeny piece on the federal.
Okay, Ms. Evans.
I believe Ms. Larson had her hand up first.
Okay, Ms. Larson.
You kind of answered my question with the Binford. So it sounds like with what we have planned for Binford will be helpful moving forward, correct?
Yes.
Okay, my second question is, you know, we had, it was such an issue with the principal at Reed having to move late in the school year, or after the school year had already begun, is, do you feel like, since we're talking about this now, obviously we have to wait till SOLs come out, but if there is some sort of mandate or something that comes down, is there any way that we have a little more, okay.
If this doesn't apply.
That's because of the priority status that is
Okay.
determined each year, and the state has to look at all schools within the Commonwealth and determine
okay.
where you fall in ranking.
Okay. That's on
And
the
that
federal
becomes
side.
priority. To your other question, Benford programmatic change would be a place to ask for conditional MLKs. Local reconstitution that we did would be viewed as a proactive stance on our part to qualify. And ironically, the Elkhart-Thompson merger would create a reset. But Elkhart was actually headed in the same status as Thompson is this current year. They were just 1 year behind. So all 3 of those, by internal local actions that administration has put in place, would now have a case to appeal for conditional accreditation or restart. RAS is going to go forward, most likely, and then be put in a different alternative certification model following that process, because it really is an alternative situation.
What about Amelia Street?
Same thing on
Same
Million
thing.
Street.
Okay.
We came before you.
Yes, I remember that.
Okay.
But that was part of the state board. We went with the last three. One of their very pointed questions was, what are you all doing? And kind of hint as an administration, new administration, to show intervention at your level and your governance level with your board and superintendent to try and take corrective action before you come up here and ask for something from us to say you need more time to work on these schools. Those particular schools are getting those actions locally. And this is new charted territory, so I would say, yes, it's not perfect, but part of this is us trying to get in front of, rather than having someone dictate to us what we have to have done in our schools.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Epps, followed by Ms. Muhammad.
Ms. Garland, this information that you're sharing with us, is this the same information, the standing for each of these schools in September? When we started the school year?
Correct. So at this point, we have to have all of the letters and all of the documentation. Actually, let me step backwards. Next month, I'm coming before you to request your signature, the board's approval or signature on a letter that says we are going to ask for a conditional for each one of those schools. Every single bit of the documentation and preliminary data, all the letters have to be in the hands of DOE by July 13th. So we have actually a very short turnaround period, and it's very preliminary in regards to the scores. By the time we go to the state board in the fall, they'll have the actual scores.
So, I guess I want to understand, we've known this since September, and now you're sharing this information, I guess, in preparation for this coming year. Are we showing any gains to date that we can be hopeful that 9 of these schools, of these 9 schools, that any of them are going to change their status such that we don't have to go to the state and ask for these interventions, I guess, or, labor, for lack of a better word?
I think one of the things that I want to back up and start with the first comments you made. Conditional is about gains now. Some of these schools, Virginia is an all or none system. So unless you hit 75% pass, 70, 77, you could have jumped from 35 to 55, and that's huge gains, but that's not going to qualify to meet the muster. So my point to you is, it's like a catch-22. If the school jumps from 35 to 70, 75, we think something else is going on potentially. It just doesn't happen. So we can have gains like we have in many of our schools this past year. And I'll use an overly simplified version. Huguenot, where we're sitting, did not meet the graduation rate. They passed every other standard. Graduation requirement is 85. They were 83. Luckily, the 83 got them conditional graduation credit. We had another school that had 82. They just don't meet the cut, and so you just move another year in the accountability system. So gains initially do not count. It's outright all or none.
And so do you anticipate, based on, what have we put in the schools to date that might give us an idea that these schools are going to make these gains?
Well, each one had an academic review. They all have essential actions from the state. They all have school improvement plans through which they are to monitor their essential actions. Benford, Elkhart, MLK, Richmond Alternative, Henderson all have a lead turnaround partner because they're all priority schools. So they have supports in place. I'm not going to base any predictions on benchmark assessments.
Why would that be? Aren't the benchmark assessments supposed to give us an idea as to whether or not how these children may perform on these SOLs?
Well, I'm not going to predict SOL passages on benchmark data, any system.
Are we at least hopeful that we're going to see some improvement?
Yes,
We'll see improvement, but my point to you is that in some of the schools, improvement won't be it. You got to hit the mark. you got to score 75 pass on English. And if you were at a 40% pass rate and you jumped to 55, you're still not going to get credit for it. And schools can't close the gap that fast. 3 to 5 percentage points is still typically considered statistically significant. You know, we had schools last year that had 12, 15, 20-point gains. Ginter Park had one area 22 points, but they still did not meet. It went from 35 to 55 in one area. So it may not be enough, is what I'm trying to convey, so that we will show progress. And again, that's one of the reasons I think that you hear public outcry, and even the state's recognizing now that, you know, people taking jobs in hard, high-need, challenging schools, if they don't get credit for growth, it's demoralizing to them because they got to move students from a very low area performance place to a higher performance place, which is why our conversation with our schools is we look, obviously our goal is to hit this performance target, but we also then look at if we don't hit it, are we showing significant gains towards the point? I think the state now, if there was a law, legislators approved, requiring the state board now to put in place another measure for, I think, 2016, I'm doing this from memory, that will recognize growth as a new measure as part of the process because it has not had that built into the system. Now that's a year away, at least.
And one note of importance on this too is, you know, on the state side, money doesn't follow that.
I'm sorry?
I said the money doesn't follow it on the state side. On the state side, state sanctions, we're not funded. We don't receive any funding for the work that we do, so, you know, it falls on the division.
I don't have a question. Thank you so much for that information and reminding us where some of our schools are. I just want to remind the board that in the superintendent's weekly memo to us or information to us, at the very top it indicated that we still as a board needed to schedule the rest of our governance training, and then it was something else, some other training that we needed to do, which if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Bett, is that in partnership, or partnership may not be the right word, but isn't that a encouragement by DOE, or it's a, I don't know if mandate is the correct terminology, but I didn't want to go there, but I thought I heard you say that it is required of us.
It is required.
So, I mean, board members, I know I have been singing this governance training song for over a year and a half, but we are going to have to get together and get this done, and it's a 100% requirement. It's not 8 out of 9, it's not 7 out of 9, it is 9 out of 9 of us need to be in a room, and we need to complete the governance training. That is a part of our school improvement plan that we have in partnership with the State Department, and it is a must. And I'm just going to share with you that I'm not going to name the school districts, but I would share with you all that you can research on DOE's website. Their meetings that they're open, they're videotaped, where school districts in the Commonwealth have been sanctioned. They have had, it was not a nice conversation because they did not implement governance training. I do not want that to fall on us. And they're not telling you, but I'm telling you, we are already at that door. And we're going to have to buckle down and get it done.
Thank you, Ms. Muhammad. Ms. Gray, followed by Ms. Taylor.
I just have a couple of quick questions. One, you said Franklin Military. Is that both the middle school and the high school, or are they combined?
It's the school all in one.
Okay. My second question is about Richmond Alternative School. When they were CCP, they had an alternative accreditation plan. Did that go away when they became Richmond Alternative School?
It was not applied for last year, and therefore, so we are applying for it this year, but it doesn't kick in until next year. So there was a lapse.
Oh my
It was
goodness.
not renewed.
That's major because they were given a lot more leeway because of the population. So this year they're basically having to meet the same benchmarks as every other comprehensive school. Okay. And that's both at the middle and high school level.
Yes, that's one school,
Okay.
just like Franklin Military.
Dr. Boyd?
Good afternoon. I'm sorry to run to the mic, but just so that we're, have some additional information, not applying for the alternative accreditation plan last year was purposeful. It wasn't that it didn't happen. Actually, it was drafted last year, but because we had such a change in staff and administration, we just got a principal the last 2 or 3 months of the school, and looking at our data, it was advised that we wait a year and apply this year. So we weren't just negligent, we just wanted to be better aligned when we had administration and things like that on hand.
And it didn't affect the school's status necessarily.
Just as far as morale goes, and as far as just overall knowing the challenges, I mean, anybody who's done discipline hearings sees, you know, what kind of challenges that school is having on behavioral levels and academically as well. We look at the student profiles. It's just difficult to comprehend that they would have to meet that same 75% mark under any circumstance. And it's kind of defeating for the students too to see that, you know, the ones that are there trying.
Okay, Ms. Taylor?
I don't know if this necessarily has to be answered tonight, but a few things that I would like to have updates on. One in particular are the benchmark scores. I know that you just spoke to not giving benchmark scores a whole lot of credence as far as making your analysis, but it's something that I would like to see dispersed amongst board members. It's a request I put in a few weeks ago. And again, that would be benchmark scores. Also, I would like to have an update for the entire board on what the curriculum alignment has been like. I know Ms. Terry Perkins spoke to that matter a while ago, but if we can get some updates as to exactly how our teachers are receiving the information as far as making sure that they're on point in the classrooms with the curriculum. Also, I would like to know, I know that we have information going home to parents as far as opting out or opting in rather, and if we could see, get a report on that whenever that becomes available as to both the number of students, parents who choose to opt out and those who choose to opt in. And lastly, I would like to know where we are on Aspen. This is something that I have been inquiring about for the entire year. I think that that has a tremendous impact on student performance. I think it's very important that students know how they're performing in their individual classrooms. And I, as a parent, I've been having a really uphill battle trying to find out exactly how my child has been performing in her classes, as well as she's raised quite a few questions weekly because she can't gain access. She's asking teachers, you know, how am I doing? They're saying, come back to me, come back later when I have more time, because they're having a taxing year as well. So we can find out exactly how this Aspen, as far as the grading is concerned, and if it's something that we may consider letting go of, at least that portion of it, to see if there's something that will work and be more conducive to parents being able to know how their children are doing in real time. Thank you.
Okay,
Last point. Thank you.
Last point is on the federal side, which is the annual measurable objectives, which are a little bit lower than the benchmarks right now. But the state was reprimanded for their, well, not reprimanded, but USED was not pleased with the number of years that priority schools remain priority schools beyond the third year of implementation of a turnaround. And also, there were a number of schools that had been priority that had exited that fell back into priority status. Therefore, the state had to add an additional requirement in the flexibility waiver that was just approved recently in March. And basically, if a priority school does not exit priority status after 3 years of intervention, Virginia will require them to follow through on additional actions in the fourth-year priority status. The schools that we're talking about are Thompson, Henderson, Elkhart, Martin Luther King, and Richmond Alternative. And essentially, once they enter their fourth year, if they don't exit in the 3-year period of implementation, the lead turnaround partner has to do a needs assessment. The state comes in and does its needs assessment. They compare both needs assessments. They write a corrective action plan, and now we're headed right down the road that we were in terms of the requirements for on the state side. So basically, it reflects and mirrors the same thing that they're doing on the state side. And then we will, again, have to go, Dr. Bedden and representatives from my office will have to go, as we do now, on a quarterly basis to meet with the State Department and review the performance data and the documentation of all that we have on essential actions. So that's all I have.
It's great follow-up.
So I just have a question, and Jeff kind of put that bug in my ear. Why wasn't Richmond Alternative reset when it became Richmond Alternative? Because it hasn't even been around for 3 years.
Because it has the same state school number that it's always had. Everything revolves around that number, really. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk.
The next item is 4.02, receive a recommendation to move Elkhart Middle School from Park Springs Elementary School to Thompson Middle School.
Good evening. The purpose of the receiving this tonight is that in 137 calendar days, we start the new school year on September 8th. In order for us to accomplish that move, we need certain decisions made so that we can begin from a facility standpoint as well as from a transportation and other operational areas begin that move. In addition, there's a number of academic things that Abe and his team need to do as far as constructing master schedules, beginning the staffing levels, and so forth. And so that was the purpose of bringing forth this recommendation tonight. It's my understanding that y'all will receive it tonight, have a public hearing on it at the meeting on Monday, May 4th, and then at that time we would ask that y'all would vote on this recommendation.
Ms. Muhammad.
I'm sorry. So I just want to make sure I understand this item right now. You're not asking us to take a vote on it tonight?
No, ma'am. No.
May 4th.
Just asking you to receive it tonight.
Okay.
Okay, let me help you all. Basically, so between now and then, you have an opportunity to talk with the administration about it. We are required by the state to do a public hearing so we can get the public involved. That's going to happen also on May 4th. You just heard Mr. Krantz acknowledge the reality of timelines. And so with that, the public hearing will be on the 4th, and our plan is to vote also on that day. So at this point, this is the recommendation that's going forward. Okay, Mr. Bourne.
Just a clarifying question, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Krantz, in the impact statement, and in my day job, words matter, it says the recommendation is authorization to move Elkhart Middle School and Thompson Middle School for the 2015-2016 school year. Am I correct in remembering that regardless of what the right sizing plan is that goes forward, if we had the check to build a new middle school somewhere in South Richmond right now, it's still a 2-year process?
Yes, sir, you're correct.
And so in an effort to really be transparent and ask people to comment publicly about this plan, does it need to say for the 2015, 2016, and the 2016, 2017 school year?
Yes, sir, at a minimum it should, that's my apology.
Thank you.
That is correct.
Just the next 2 school years, because I was just clarifying that Tommy had told us a couple times before that no matter what we do, building a new middle school, renovating Elkhart, it's a 2-year process.
At least.
So it doesn't make sense just to move her for 1 year, then have to come back and do it again.
Okay, Ms. Epps, followed by Ms. Muhammad.
Mr. Krantz, do you think there's any way possible that we can, and I'm willing to work with you, that we can convene at least a couple of community meetings before May 4th with regard to this merger? And although this document said effect on others not applicable, wouldn't it be fair to say that at least those matriculating 5th graders are going to be impacted, as well as the 6th and 7th graders who are still in the temporary location over at Clark Springs?
You're correct, but when I said there wasn't an impact, is that we've had this discussion previously, and there is an impact. I mean, there's students from Elkhart who were moved to Clark Springs. Those students now are going to go from Clark Springs to Thompson, and as you say, those 5th graders that are going to go up to the 6th grade, all those will be impacted. But the purpose of that language was that we've had that discussion previously, and so that's why I said there was no change at this time compared to the previous conversations we've had.
Okay.
But yes, ma'am, I'm open to any and all community meetings that we need to have to answer any questions that they may have.
And have you previously shared with us a potential cost to the district?
The cost of moving the students from Clark Springs to Thompson would be very minimal, if anything at all, because Thompson's currently a state that it's a school that's held in excess of 1,200 students before. It is a middle school, so it's set up for these middle school students. The transportation cost is obviously the distance, and the actual distance from Elkhart to Thompson is about the same as it is to Clark Springs. Actually, not traveling across that river and through town, we should be a little bit quicker. And one thing to remember is that in 3 years, Thompson, from a capacity standpoint, will be over. We will exceed 107% of the capacity of Thompson in 3 years. And to build a new middle school is 24 months. The same as repairing the existing Elkhart is 24 months. So anything that we discussed today is in place until we have a better alternative, which we clearly need in 3 years, based on our current projected enrollment. They're there for the elementary schools as well as the middle schools.
This one's for you, Dr. Benton. So if we ultimately decide that we are going to merge Elkhart and Thompson and make it one school, does that mean that that means that possibly we'll have 2 schools come out of this status that Ms. Garland just spoke to?
As discussed last meeting and this one, yes, you would actually get a new school number. I cannot apply for a new school number until this board officially declares that's what they're going to be. So that's the other issue. We are trying to get the state timeline with regards to what is the drop dead date that I have to submit that request for a new number. So that's also something we're trying to get solidified from the state. Typically, when a merger happens, the school with the largest enrollment is the number you must stay with. They're almost the exact same size, which thus means that we have the ability to apply for a new school number and restart it as a totally new school without one being the school. So it becomes a true merger and a restart for the school.
Would we change the name?
That's our issue as I understand it internally. But from the federal guidelines and the number coding they assign to it, our current process right now lends itself, unless something changes to it, getting a totally different school number. So Because right now, we're trying to get clarification. It may be, I don't know, Thompson Elkhart Middle School. Tom Elk. I'm trying to be humorous and make you laugh. So, that's the best we know right now. At this point, that because of their size, because of the reason this happened, as in no intention to try to circumvent the accountability system, that they would be eligible. Until you vote officially, it does not give me the authority to apply for a new number. The only reason I proposed Elkhart was by state code because of an environmental concern that does not require any vote or action because I have a duty based on the licensure from the state to take action for the well-being. So that was why that was different.
Okay, just one very real quickly because I'd like to meet with you both. Have you all already started, if this merger, if you're looking for us to vote on this potential merger, have you given any consideration to the fact that these two different schools have different sets of partners, and specifically with regard to the wraparound support services that the students are receiving? Have you thought about who we're going to keep, who we're not going to keep, or is that?
We are having those conversations administratively, yes.
Okay.
So that's happening administratively, just like we've had conversations, the need to know if we're going to do this, because we're trying to build in additional time for those school staff to come back early. They have time to collaborate and work together as they plan for the year. It is not, from our previous conversation, passingly among other things, once I know what is happening from an academic standpoint, out of facilities, we would be having those invitations for parents to talk about those types of things. Who's going to be your partner? How's this going to look? Like, we got to reconfigure the building to absorb those teachers. We also have a need to get cracking on what the impact is on staff. Overly simplified, for example, to give an example, you can't have we won't have two librarians.
Right. Cafeteria work.
Right, so just to give easy. Principalships we won't have two, but we know in this case one is retiring, so that solves that. But the sooner we know what we're doing, the quicker way we get humping to address all those logistical things and work through them. And whether it's, first thing is if there's overlap in duties, a person can ask for a volunteer. If there's no volunteers, it's seniority, all those types of things. To get the staff number, how many sections, like I said, with staffing with regards to making a master schedule, all those become time sensitive beyond just building a new building. And that's another conversation. We got what happens inside stuff that has to be addressed. If we don't do anything, the truth of the matter is, I personally not sure you have many options, because just the number of kids and what to do with them, and unintendedly we get the restart because Elkhart is headed into the same path as Thompson next year already.
Okay, so this is my last one.
All right,
this is my last one. With regard to the parents' opportunities, I shared with you in an email that I understand that the state asks for a waiver, that parents technically don't have a choice anymore to move their children from out of a failing environment. And so, with regard to us making this merger, will there be an opportunity for any of those parents who might say, I don't want my child in Thompson? Do we have any availability at any of our other middle schools such that we could potentially reopen open enrollment and give these parents an opportunity to choose a different school?
The first answer to that question is the choice, the regulation you're referring to, has gone through 2 iterations. It was done several years ago where Virginia, along with several other states, opted out. What you say again is they got reapproved again, so it's not new, it's a reapproval, depending on what document you've seen, where the feds approved the state again for that model to happen. With regards to the out-of-boundary situation, that's something the board has to decide. That's not within the purview of the administration. You have a system in place that was driven by your policy. All we did was develop a procedure that you accepted as part of the policy. So I don't have the authority to change it. So that's something that you all would have to decide whether you're going to give any leeway based on whatever seats are remaining in other schools.
Is it possible that we could get that information in the event that that is a decision that we might lean towards reopening open enrollment on the middle school level?
Mr. Chairman, as Dr. Boyd is coming up, can I make a comment towards just that piece, or?
You want to hear her first?
Actually, not to be rude to you, Dr. Boyd, but no, I want to make the statement. If we do that, what Ms. Pinkney-Epps has just requested, our coordinator for, and I know I'm getting ready to beat up your title, but Ms. Garland, she just mentioned several middle schools that are a part of the 9 that are in a contractual turnaround status. We are going to have to open that window for every middle school who is on that list, and rightfully so. We can't just do it because something environmentally happened in one middle school, and that middle school that those students are going to be transferred to so happens to be in a 3-year period of being not accredited or conditionally accredited, which to me means they're not accredited anyway. We're going to have to go back and look at MLK, we're going to have to look at Benford, we're going to have to look at every struggling middle school. So the reason why I didn't want to wait till Dr. Boyd said anything, it is because it is very important for us to understand that when we're dealing with a middle school that is in a failure status for whatever reason, and we are going to open up or decide to reopen open enrollment for that middle school who is a failing middle school, we are going to have to address the possibility of reopening all of the middle schools that are on the same list. So I just wanted to say that,
okay.
Because it's a concern when I hear that.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Mohammed. Dr. Boyd.
In response to Ms. Epps' request, it would be some time before we can get those numbers to you. Right now, we've just sent out intent to return letters, confirmation that those students can return to their schools. Open enrollment, acceptance letters, and waitlist letters are going out in the next couple of days. And so we already have an outline process that we've shared with the public in reference to waitlist applicants and things like that. And it would have to be opened back up to that group of folks first, because there's already standing wait lists for our schools. And so I don't know what type of adverse impact, if any, it might have on families, in terms of making arrangements for transportation. Some of our middle school students, even though they're young, still may need some aftercare supervision, things of that nature. And so I would just hate to wait until it's 12th hour, just speaking as a parent myself, to kind of get that information. Because it honestly would be a little while before we can get those numbers to you in terms of how many spaces are available, because it's contingent upon parents enrolling their students at their school of choice and then operating through our wait list.
Okay, can you speak to then what's going to be, if we're in the process, if these middle school principals are in the process of doing master schedules,
30 seconds.
How then does not having the if I've applied for open enrollment and I don't have that information now, when does my child get their schedule?
Well, the first round of open enrollment applicants, if my memory serves me correct, they have to notify their schools by May 1st or May 15th that they're coming in. Which one's the 15th? I know I told you today. So they'll have that information. We have the course request schedules, course request forms attached to the student schedules. So it shouldn't be as difficult, and Mr. Jeffers can speak specifically to the graduated timeline or master schedules to be completed, but I believe it's towards the latter part of the school year. So that would still afford them an opportunity to get those open enrollment students in.
Okay. All right, Mr. Jefferson.
Just a quick point. In regard to transferring students that are not to a failing school, that would be only school eligible would be Albert Hill. That's the only school that is not in a status of some sort right now. So all students, if you did open enrollment, they would all have to go to Albert Hill. As far as the scheduling piece, we have the expectation is all students will have schedules by the end of the year. And student, as Dr. Boyd mentioned, student course requests are in Aspen. So if a student is officially transferred, the record is transferred with them, and so you'd instantly see that. Principals also have an idea of how many of their students are in the option A, option B. So they know roughly, I could lose 12 students, I could lose 20 students that are zoned to come to me because they are in the process. And you can work pretty closely around those numbers looking at your historic transfers. So we have a pretty good idea of working through the master schedule.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. No problem. Timekeeper, Ms. Muhammad, does she have any time?
Ms. Muhammad has a minute and 16 seconds.
Mr. Krantz, I just wanted to, and I can put this in an email to you, be willing to set up something either on the south side of the 6 or the north side. I do have a few students that apply for open enrollment as middle schoolers for Thompson, and I'm also willing to work with another school board member to have a community meeting if we can't stack additional community meetings before May the 4th. So that's what I wanted to share.
Okay, thank you, sir. Madam Clerk?
The next item on the agenda is item 5, budgetary items. 5.02, receive the financial statement for the month ending March 2015.
Chairman, board members, with your March 31st financial report, we also included our projection, which we completed to the end of the fiscal year through June 30th. That begins on page 17 in this packet. And the first page is just a summary recap of that, and shows that at this point in time, we received our final state revenues based on March 31st enrollment, so we have that number now. We have 128 more students than we had projected, so we increased our revenue from the state, and we were originally telling you throughout the year that we're probably going to be 1.7 million down in revenues overall from the state, but that turned out to ended up being about $859,000 worth short in revenue, so we improved by close to $1 million on the revenue side. On the expenditure side, we have the challenges that we've also been discussing all year in the various areas. Basically, those items that make up the maintain in next year's budget request that you approved, the items that we tagged as maintain current service levels, we need about $2 million just to do that. So the bottom line is we ended up with we will end up with $265,846,390 of revenue. And right now we're projecting expenditures of $265,832,920, or a $13,470 margin, which is about as slim as you can get. In fact, a little too slim on a budget of this size, because anything can come along between now and June 30. So to affect that number. It's still a little bit of a conservative number, but on page 18 gives you the further breakdown then of the contents, showing you the adopted budget, the revised budget now as it stands, and for revenue and expenditures. And we broke the expenditures down into 3 basic groups. School-based compensation, and that's where we have most of our salary lapse realized and vacancy from turnovers, and that's really what saves this budget annually and has for several years now. And you can see there on page 18 on the right side, it says that we are $3,361,000 in projected balance in the salary and compensation line items, salary and benefits. The school other expenditures, that's the school for supplies and services and so forth, the $3.9 million, we're projecting and assuming in this scenario that they're going to spend all of their money by the end of the year. That's a little bit conservative, because that probably won't happen. It doesn't usually happen, but just to be on the conservative side, we're projecting that the schools would spend every penny. Sometimes just timing of circumstances They may have purchase orders encumbering items, but won't necessarily spend it all at the year end. Departments also, because in part we've asked them to be conservative too, to the year end, knowing that this budget was tight. Departments, everything else that's not school-based is $94 million, $97 million in revised budget, and there we're projecting a $2.4 million deficit. And again, so it's the net of those two, the school-based compensation offsetting the departmental expenditures. And if you flip over to page 19, that is giving you a detail by school of the school-based compensation of those variances. And what we did is we took the revised budget, looked at year-to-date expenditures through March 31 for the month that just closed, projected out what were contract balances. We have a file. We know exactly what our contract commitments are to all contracted employees. So that's actual payroll commitments. It's going to pay everybody through June 30, including the summer accruals for the teachers who get paid in July and August. It includes those July-August payments as well, because those get charged to this fiscal year. Then we take a look at what's left for April, May, and June, and that's going to be primarily made up of the non-contract salaries, substitutes, and so forth. That's a guess. So we look at what our trend's been this year, and we look at each month, what it's been most recently, January, February, March, and assume that the next 2.5 months, April, May, and half of June, until the school lets out, will be what we're going to project for the substitutes for the most part. The other non-contract, if it's in a 12-month position and it's a non-contract temporary type salary, then we assume we're going to pay that through June. So that takes care of that. The school non-compensation for their other expense accounts is on page 20. And that again, you'll see that out of the $3.9 million revised budget, we're projecting they're going to spend all of the $3.9 million. So no balance projected there. And then on page 21 and 22, you'll see all the departmental budgets listed by organization. And you'll see, that, again, the adopted, the revised budget, the year-to-date spend, the contract balances there, and then the projected amount for April, May, and June. And what that total projected expenditure would be on that assumption, and then what our final balance is in the right column there. So we can look down and see where we have pluses and minuses, and the first minus we run into is actually the school board account. 39,000 will be in the red, and that's only because in part there's expenditures there that need to be offset by the 15,000, the extra 5,000 that you each parsed out to your separate individual accounts. It was that other $50,000. If that was still sitting in the consolidated school board account, 1,100, that's what we need basically to offset that 39,000 that exists at this point, or what we're projecting to year end. We assumed you were going to spend each one of you each spend your $15,000 that's in your individual accounts. That's why we're showing a net zero balance there. Again, that's an assumption that we made in this scenario. And then we come down to testing, $432,000. It's basically for unanticipated, and software, things that we didn't have in the budget. Again, these are things that we have put in the budget for 16, things we know about that we have now, like interactive achievement and the longitudinal data system that we're going to have recurring payments on. And then also $500,000 in budget in risk management down in 3202, about a third of the way down the page. That $550,000 is primarily the result of excess workers' compensation payments that we're going to be making in excess of the budget. $895,000, two more down in utilities. That's our utilities are going to be going over again next year. We added $600,000 in the budget, assuming we're going to have some savings on efficiencies, but we're still going to be over budget, so we projected that in the request for next year. The next large item is $710,000 in purchasing. That's where we account for our copiers and the Xerox contract. That's going to be over budget. Again, we put that in the budget request for next year, because to provide adequately for all of the maintenance of the multifunction devices that are in all of the schools and departments, about 60 schools and departments, we need that contract was unrealistically reduced. The budget for that contract 2 years ago was unrealistically reduced to $1 million, even though we were spending and had a contract commitment of $1.6 million. So that's what that represents. And again, the only reason we've survived in the last few years is because of the salary lapse that we have annually. And that was the reason, again, I'm just reiterating this, for asking for that 1.9 million to maintain service levels, because this really is not the way to live year to year. We shouldn't be hoping that we're going to have enough turnover and salary lapse to save ourselves on this point in time in the budget, because we have no alternative. If we don't have these funds, then we're going to be, you will be in the position, and me, the superintendent, of being guilty of malfeasance of office for overspending the budget. And by law, we can't have a fund balance in the school board in the state of Virginia. So that's the predicament we're in. It's a rock and a hard spot. You have to balance a budget, but you can't maintain a balance. So the next item after that is transportation. We all know about that. $1.9 million. Again, it's partly efficiencies that Mr. Kranz and company is attempting to implement over time. It's going to take time, and again, also it's a recognition of that budget's not adequate for the level of service we need to provide. And I'd say those are the major ones. Foreign language, the foreign language elementary instructional program down at 5205, 221,000 there. It's the language services and interpretive services that we're providing. Go back to the back side here. We have exceptional education, $1,173,000 projected deficit. And again, every year at this point in time, it's basically OT, PT services and tuition payments for the students that need those services. The budget's not realistic. And again, that is part of the request we put forward for next year to adequately project a reasonable budget that we know is based on history. We know what we're going to spend in those areas, and with our population growing as it is, we don't have any need to expect those numbers are going to be shrinking on us. If anything, they're going to be increasing. So that's how we got to the projection. I hope that's clear in terms of how we arrived at these numbers. Again, we have to project and make assumptions about the next 3 months. We've tagged everything that we know of that are the large ticket items. Anything could come along that we don't know about, and we don't necessarily know about everything. It's still our first pass of a full year through this budget. An invoice could pop up that we haven't anticipated, and that changes the picture. So we've got a few, some small places that we can tap into. We're still going to be conservative and monitor this every day as we go along. All the department heads, the cabinet has the detailed copies behind each one of these departmental budgets. That's the largest area, and then also trying to contain our substitute and temporary staffing costs for the next 3 months, 2.5 months for the most part. So that's the explanation and all I have, unless you have questions.
Ms. Gray.
Two hopefully quick questions. One, I know we depend on the city for the CAFR report. Is there any hope of us getting that anytime during the, oh no, that's fine. Is there any hope of getting a CAFR report? Because that really informed a lot on the budget, and it told us about the trust fund balances and things that we don't typically see in the monthly financial report.
The CAFR for the schools?
Yes.
We can provide you with, I can provide you with a draft. We have the draft of the school side.
Okay, so they were able to get the information from us that they needed. It was just the city.
They've had the information from us, yes.
Okay.
They're still working on the CAFR on the city side, but our side is, we're still waiting on one more item from an external source that provides numbers to us that we have to put in the CAFR, but the schedules and all those things with the funds and the budget versus actual revenues and expenditures, all those schedules are completed.
And then with any fund balance, which it looks like it's going to be a very tiny fund balance this go round.
For this year?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Have we already decided where that's going to be committed? Is that what you're telling us?
Out of the $6 million fund balance that the CAFR draft shows at this point in time, $6.4 million, we plan on $3.8 million of it in this budget. So that's back on page.
So we've already put almost 4 of the 6
of that number into this budget. When you look at the recap of our revenues on page 18,
okay,
in that column there, you'll see the first line is fund balance. So revenue that we're counting on we're planning on 3.8 million of that fund balance for this year's budget. So that leaves out of that 6.4 million, then in next year's budget, we said we were going to reduce that to, did we say 1.5 million? Yeah, 1.5. And so that takes us up to 4.3 million.
So
that's,
are we required, I know in the past with that Gatsby 54 thing, we're required to vote and commit the fund balance to specific items?
it's in the request of the approved budget that you put forward.
Okay.
It has that 1.5 million in there.
So the remainder, do we need to commit that?
If there, we may need to make a request for that, and that's what we're
Okay.
going to monitor between now and June 30. So we may
Okay.
need to bring that back.
I just want to make sure we don't forfeit anything. And the second question I have is health insurance. Have we renegotiated, or are we still in that process?
We're still in the process, and we're actually evaluating an RFP Wednesday for a new consultant, health benefits consultant, that we'll be bringing on board within the next 2 weeks. And then they're going to help us go finish the process. Actually, what we're going to do, we're changing the plan year from August open enrollment and the August start of the new plan year to January 1 to align with the calendar year, which aligns better for individuals who are managing their withholdings and their annual withholdings and their deductible amounts on the calendar for tax purposes.
Okay.
So there's going to be another open enrollment in October. That'll be actually the main open enrollment. And we're going to actually also be bringing back to the board recommendation for an additional new health plan, a high deductible plan with a health savings account.
So they'll have 2 opportunities instead of 1?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So we're still looking at the 6.8% increase in premiums that the board right now has assumed 100% of that in the budget that's been approved.
Mr. Bourne?
Just real quick, because I see that we're almost back on schedule. The healthcare consultant, is the consultant our consultant, the joint interest between us?
Joint.
And what consideration or has there been due diligence done on presenting us with a case for or against continuing the consolidated healthcare or
We'll
separate?
make that a part of the analysis once we get that group on board.
Thank you.
Seps?
Mr. West Bay, on pages 19 through 22 of these documents,
Yes, ma'am.
what does this represent? What does it mean by school compensation?
So that's all the school-based salaries. So it's teachers and everybody who's in the school, principal, instructional assistants, custodians, everybody who's school-based. So all the salaries, which is the majority of them, are school-based. And that's nothing but salaries. The schools don't have control over these numbers. They're based, because it's just based on staffing. Schools get allocated their staffing based on the staffing standards, people-teacher ratios and so forth. But these are the salaries attached to those people. And so this represents the actual expenditures of salaries and benefits for the staff in the schools.
Okay, and on page 20 where it says school non-compensation, other expenses, what's that?
Those are all the lines that they do have control over, their supply lines and services, practice services for, if they're managing the money like for extended day, school and things like that, those are all the accounts of the dollars that they manage. And that's why we're assuming there's not going to be balances left there that they're going to spend, the school is going to spend 100% of their funds.
But this column is projected April through June, that potentially reflects what they currently have available?
That's correct.
Okay. And then on this other page, page 21, in particular, where it talks about department budgets, and you look at the school board, the board district 1 through 9.
Yes, ma'am.
So this reflects that, I think there may be something wrong here. It reflects that I've only spent $4,486 to date, and I have $11,447 projected. Have there not been some amounts that posted?
If it was very recent, that would be, this is as of March 31st, whatever got posted through March 31.
we've received reports and clearly they don't match up.
It needs to obviously be updated and corrected, but if you also know that it is projected for this purposes that that money would be spent totally. So for his report, it still would not impact. Do you see that zero over at the far right?
Yes.
The assumption is that all of it will be spent. So yes, it needs to be updated, which is your point. But then just want to make sure you're aware that for his calculations in this report, it is presuming that you all will have spent your money. So it won't change his bottom line other than only for the positive aspect if you don't spend it all.
Okay, well,
You're saying
I
that
guess
maybe...
what I want to know is,
Why?
can I use this report as
No.
the balance of funds?
No, you may not. No, this is saying this was the snapshot that we used as the basis of our projection. If you've spent something, a part of that 11,447 of your balance already, then that would have to be deducted. And again, that's what we're going to go by and what each of the department heads will be going by too as their actual monthly budget reports.
Okay.
All righty. Thank you. Dr. Benton.
Just as Mr. West Bay outlined to you all, that if we move forward and everything is spent as allocated, we are right at basically spending what we had, because 13,000, you don't get any closer to than that. Just reminding the board that because of as he mentioned, that if we get anything big as a surprise, which has happened in my 15 months here on the job, travel that is coming out of the general fund has received more restrictions, so as to put more constraints on it, because those items typically surprise us with big expenses. Tomorrow, principals will be reminded that anything expended after May 1st will require a cabinet level signature to keep us from overrunning the budget. And then on June 1st, the spending is frozen because you have to let all the encumbered stuff come in. So just to remind you, those are constraints that we're putting in place to try to maintain our fiduciary responsibility of not having malfeasance and overspending our budget. So we've already put more constraints on travel, on where the funding is coming from. May 1st, we'll kick it up that principals won't be able to spend without a cabinet level, their direct report approving it. And June 1st, it will be frozen because we have to have time for encumbered balances to actually show up and hit the books and stop it from freezing for it to catch up. The audit that you've heard about is that our CAFR, the audit firm is the same as the cities. They have sent us kudos, basically, on us being able to get our audit and our department things done in a timely manner. So all of our audits have come in with high marks and ability to get our CAFR done in a timely manner. There is conversation going on at this point with who will be conducting audits going forward. So you'll be getting more information on that with regards to whether it's all or none, whether we have to stay joined at the hip with the city, or we're able to continue with the current audit firm. So you'll be receiving some information in the weekly report regarding that, since the city has to change to a different person, because that person, as you know, has announced they will no longer continue to do the audits as part of the capital report for the city. I will tell you that we are very happy with the audit. They're one of the big 4 or 5 firms that exist, and we would like to continue, but that's being worked through with the city. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Clerk.
The next item is 5.03, receive the financial statements for Patrick Henry School of Science and Arts.
Good evening. As of March 31st, the school had $90,000 in cash. Most of that, actually all of it, was restricted for various items, including a window project that is pretty much complete at this time, other than punch list items. And payments for vendors in the that did the windows. The remaining amount of the money was for various curriculum item, restricted items.
All right. Anybody have any questions for Pat Chairman? We have received these documents. Mr. West Bay, do you have any comments on these documents? Okay. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Madam Clerk.
The next item is item 6, board actions. 6.01, receive for action in science textbook adoptions from middle and high schools.
Good afternoon. We do not have another presentation or report. You have all the documents that we presented last board meeting, and so at this point we are seeking approval to make those purchases when the funds come available.
So moved. Second.
I'm sorry, who made the motion? Mr. Sturdivant. And Mr. Bourne seconded? Yes. I'm sorry.
Mr. Bourne did.
Yeah.
Mr. Sturdivant?
Yes.
Ms. Gray? Yes. Mr. Bourne?
Yes.
Mrs. Taylor?
This is the opportunity. We've already made the motion. We'll come back to you. Go ahead.
Mrs. Harris Muhammad?
Yes.
Dr. Jones? Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Mrs. Taylor?
You can ask a question, Ms. Taylor.
Mr. Cole, Mr. Chairman.
Now we, okay.
Chairman has spoken.
I'm sorry. Mr. Bourne, go ahead, sir.
Thank you. As much as I would love to engage upon this discussion again, the motion has been made, it was properly seconded, there was no discussion, and 7 members have voted already, so to inject a question or discussion now, I think would be a violation of our policies, procedures, and Robert's Rules of Order. So I would ask that we either continue calling the question or move on.
Thank you, Mr. Bourne. And Mr. Bourne is correct. I'm sorry, Ms. Taylor. Would you like to vote?
Can the lawyer speak to that?
The motion was carried, it was seconded.
I'm talking about.
It was we're in the
middle of a vote now, and so at this point.
Was any discussion ever proposed? Before you went into the vote, did you give the board an option to have a discussion, or did you just immediately go to vote? Because I think Robert Rules also allows for board members to have a discussion before a vote. So was that option given?
Ms. Taylor, it's just no reason for us. If you have a question for them.
It's just for clarity purposes, because I'm just.
Well, if you had, once again, thank you. I will accept my fault, and again, but we're moving forward.
With the vote?
Yeah, if you didn't ask for a discussion, I didn't, because we've had this information. If there was a question, I would have thought you would have gotten my attention for to have discussion.
I'm saying, that's perfectly fine. Thank you.
Madam Clerk?
I'm sorry, am I not recording the vote for Ms. Taylor? She abstained. Thank you. Motion passed. She was. Ms. Epps, you weren't in the room. Would you like to vote on the textbook?
I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry.
They just voted on the science textbook and we just walked back in. Did you want to vote on that?
No.
Are you abstaining or?
Yes, I'm abstaining.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? Thank you so much.
The next item is 6.02, receive for action the annual exceptional education plan.
Ms. Kane.
You're coming up next, so you might not want to leave.
Good evening. Again, the annual plan was submitted at the last board meeting for your review. So I'm here to entertain any questions that you may have, but I do not have a presentation at this time.
Dr. Boyd, are you looking for motion to?
Yes, to approve the annual plan so that we can request funds to support our special education students.
I move that we receive the proposed, the annual exceptional education plan.
Second.
Moved and second. Any discussion? Ms. Epps?
Yes. Dr. Boyd, I apologize. With this exceptional education plan, I kind of went through it. While I understand this plan, you are very well aware that we are starting, and along the way, we've had several concerns raised about whether or not children are actually benefiting from the IEP. We heard earlier this evening about a situation that an advocate experienced. Do the people, I guess, on the IEP teams, what is their responsibility to uphold this plan?
So IEP teams are bound to develop an IEP based on the student's present level of performance. They develop goals, services, accommodations, and to implement the federal and state special education regulations. And that is all done. The state outlines required team membership. And so while we do know certainly that we have rooms for improvement in terms of ongoing professional development for staff, accountability measures, in the absence of this plan that would truly hinder us, then we would have significant compliance issues because, as you see, this potentially could bring $5.5 million towards supplementing our special education program. So in light of the things that we still have to work with now in terms of building capacity for students, in the absence of these funds via this application, we would really be, for lack of a more professional phrase, we would have our hands handcuffed and would be digging ourselves out of a hole.
So this plan provides us an opportunity to, we need to spend money on this plan? I want to make sure that I understand. This brings in money?
Absolutely, it brings in money. It's an application process that's required from all LEAs and state-operated programs. So this pays for a substantial number of staff that will provide those direct services.
And then does this plan also speak to when they provide those direct services, I guess, whether or not if they're Medicaid related, are we receiving those reimbursements? This plan doesn't speak to that?
That's totally separate.
Something different? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Ms. Taylor?
I'm sorry, just in reading through and speaking, following up with you thinking of this question, you said that a substantial amount, but it speaks to that it will partially support those 136 positions. So what is the portion that it will not support?
So carryover funds with our anticipated increase in days and cost of living. We work with our budget department to anticipate with the personnel that are currently in our flow-through account what they would be paid next year with salary and benefits. And even with the 5.5 that we anticipate receiving from the annual plan, there's a gap. But we still have some carryover funds that would meet that gap, and so it wouldn't put us in a deficit. We're still able to pay those salaries and benefits packages with the carryover and the anticipated $5.5 million with the flow-through.
In its totality?
Correct.
Thank
Okay. Closed discussion.
Okay. The motion was made by Ms. Harris Mohammed and seconded by Mr. Bourne to approve the annual exceptional education plan. Mr. Sturdivant? Ms. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Bourne?
Yes.
Mrs. Taylor?
Yes.
Mrs. Harris Mohammed?
Yes.
Dr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Pinckney Epps?
Yes.
Mr. Sturdivant, the exceptional education plan?
Yes.
Thank you. Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. The next item is 6.03, receive for action the proposed summer school plan.
Good evening again. I don't have a different plan than we showed you, or schedule, I should say, than the last time we met. And so at this point, we are seeking approval to move forward.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any discussion?
You move.
No, Mr. Sturdivant, Ms. Harris Mohammed.
All right, any discussion?
Yes.
Ms. Taylor?
Again, my apologies for not being here due to not being under the weather, but with the ELL and ESL population for summer school, what are the specifics as to how you will be addressing their concerns, and what location will the middle school students be in for the summer?
So middle schools will be in, and that's in your attachments today, but I'm sure I have. We've got, Bouchard, Henderson, and MLK. And ELL is going to, of course, focus on literacy, vocabulary. They're going to focus on numeracy. Very, very similar to what they did last year, because those are the key topics that we have to hit. It depends on what level the students are in, what level of services.
Okay. I was wondering, because I've spent quite a bit of time over at Elkhart, Clark Springs, literally, for the Elkhart students, and I'm understanding that we have tremendously, a huge influx of students coming in daily from that community, and the language barrier is extreme. And so because the children aren't even understanding the language in itself, are we prepared to have extra support in place to accommodate those students who speak little to no English at all?
Yeah, so we just met last week, and we're doing some advertising before the end of this week that will be done. And we do recognize that we need a considerable number of teachers for our ELL students. We need a considerable number of teachers for our ELL students all year long. And we did propose some of that for the budget. But yes, we recognize that.
Okay.
And we plan for it.
Would you let us know what that extra additional cost would be to accommodate?
I'm sorry, Title III.
Title III funds, perfect, excellent, thank you, thank you.
Close the discussion.
The motion was made by Mr. Sturdivant, seconded by Mrs. Harris Mohammed to approve the proposed summer school plan. Mr. Sturdivant?
Yes.
Ms. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Bourne?
Yes.
Mrs. Taylor?
Yes.
Mrs. Harris Mohammed?
Yes.
Dr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Pinckney Epps?
Me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0.
Thank you.
The next item is 6.04, receive for action a resolution surplusing 1,000 Garden Street and approve issuance of a quit claim deed.
Mr. Chairman,
That you are brilliant. I was thinking the same thing. Student, thank you so much. Would you like to leave now, or? All right.
Dr. Jones is always so conscientious about his students.
Okay, Mr.
Mr.
Crane.
Chairman,
Can
I'm
you
sorry.
start, Dr.
Is it
Jones?
possible that we can just take a 3-minute break, maybe?
Right after, let him, since he's up there.
Scott.
Go ahead, Mr. Grants.
This is a request. We received an offer on 1.273 acres that we own at Garden Street. This is an acquisition of 0.273 acres of the 1.273. The other acre is currently being used by Parks and Rec as a park there. We recommend, as an administration, the approval to surplus this property and the issuance of a quitclaim deed, with those funds being $40,000 come back to the school system in our capital account as previously approved with the resolutions back in 2000.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
The motion was made by Ms. Gray and seconded by Dr. Jones to approve the resolution surplusing 1,000 Garden Street and approve issuance of a quitclaim deed. Mr. Sturtevant?
Yes.
Ms. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin?
Yes.
Mrs. Taylor? Mrs. Harris Mohammed?
Yes.
Dr. Jones? Mrs. Pinckney Epps?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-1. The next item is, oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm saying while Mr. Krantz is there.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
6.05, receive for action a resolution surplusing Arlington Road and approve issuance of a quitclaim deed.
We are requesting, we have worked with the Economic Development Department, some bids, some information on potential purchasing of that property has come to our attention. As a result of that, and in discussions with the city's council, we as an administration are recommending a resolution surplusing the Arlington Road property, and then the approval of a quitclaim deed, whereupon those proceeds, if and when they are sold, will be coming back to the school system, to the capital account. One of the prices, for your information, is in excess of the appraisal that was done about a year and a half ago.
So moved.
Moving second, any discussion? Seeing none. Oh, there is. Ms.
I just have one quick comment to make, and that is year after year we've been criticized about holding on to properties, and that's been an excuse for not funding our facilities and giving us the capital money and meeting the needs, which I think was a ridiculous excuse. But no one on the city side has that excuse any longer. I hope that this property sale moves quickly and that we can get those proceeds back, and that we can have a serious discussion about how we move forward in facilities, getting funded, and all the repairs needed.
Okay, thank you. Close the discussion.
The motion was made by Mrs. Gray and seconded by Mrs. Harris Mohammed to approve the resolution to surplus Arlington Road and approve issuance of a quitclaim deed. Mr. Sturtevant?
Yes.
Ms. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin?
Yes.
Mrs. Taylor?
Yes.
Mrs. Harris Mohammed?
Yes.
Dr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Pinckney Epps?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0. The next item is 6.06, receive action on a request to lease portables.
This particular action is to address the growth of the students south of the James River with the elementary schools, with 137 days at the start of the school and the projected enrollment, as well as the fact that we will have to go through the city on the permitting process. We need to begin that process now, working with our schools on where the portables will be located, ensuring that our cafeterias and other infrastructure are sufficient to handle the additional students. We need to move forward on that starting immediately, and that's my request, that we can begin using CIP funds to begin that process.
Second.
Okay. Moved by Mr. Sturtevant, seconded by Ms. Gray. Madam Clerk. Any discussion? Ms. Epps.
Mr. Grant, do we have any opportunity to replace the ones that are currently in place with upgraded models?
I would love to do so. I'm going to wait and see how we end up on each site and how it ends up playing out with the exact numbers. But to the extent, we won't have more than $1 million in our current CIP to do more portables, so it's what we can do with $1 million. But yes, ma'am, ideally I would like to replace. Some of them are extremely old and need to be replaced if that's possible.
Ms. Taylor.
And the portables are to deal solely with the overcrowding in the South Side schools, correct?
That's correct.
And what is the time frame that we anticipate needing them?
Anticipate bringing them in or
Needing them.
needing them?
It's on a lease basis, correct?
My intent right now is to lease them so we go year to year. But we need to because of the challenges, because south of the river is this year is a challenge, but there's as big of a challenge come in 2016 and 17. And there needs to be a comprehensive approach to solve that. Portables alone will not solve the problem. It needs to be using those tools that are in our toolbox, so rezoning, new schools, renovations, and additions. It needs to be all of that, a comprehensive plan to address it, because it's not going away. South of the river is growing. All the indications are it's going to continue to grow. And if we're not careful, the problem could be a lot bigger in a couple of years than what we're projecting today.
Are we also considering bringing Clark Springs back online?
Clark Springs, where it's located at, doesn't address south of the river. Because when you look south of the river, the schools that have the capacity are the schools that are along the river, with the exception of Westover Hills. So if I were to try to take those students that are in the schools where they're over capacity at, and right now that's predominantly Broad Rock and Green, we would be bringing those students past a number of schools to get to Clark Springs. Or what we would have to do is rezone students that are in those schools that are along the river border, bring them north. The challenge, though, is that the number of seats north of the river on a school-by-school doesn't match, what we need down south of the river. In Clark Springs, because of the age of our facilities, I believe that we always will need a school that we have kind of in reserve. We've got facilities that are old and are failing. We have facilities that we're going to need to do renovations, and there's always going to be the need to have a school that we can move the school to while we do a renovation project or we do an addition project. And Clark Springs is that school today. Clark Springs is a great building. After what we did from a renovation standpoint and moving to Elkhart, Clark Springs is a solid building, but it doesn't address our problems south of the river. I wish it would, but it just doesn't do that.
But it also,
Okay, follow up.
it also would address the issues that we're having with the wait list for, say, pre-K, Head Start, BPI. That building would address some of those issues because we're losing a lot of funding because of it, and the crowding that we have in the north side, we haven't addressed.
Well, right now, on the north side elementary schools, we don't have the crowd. We have 13 elementary schools north of the river. There's only 2 of those schools, Fox and Mumford, that are at capacity. And both, projection-wise, are relatively flat over the next 10 years. The other elementary schools we have north of the river aren't okay. And if you look at it total north of the river, the building capacity, we're at 84%, and over 10 years we actually dropped to 83%. It's south of the river where we're running 98%, and in 10 years we get up to as high as about 109%. So our growth is south. I agree with the need for the pre-K center, but we run into that same problem where our real shortfall right now in pre-K is south of the river. And we really need that comprehensive pre-K center south so that we can offer those services. Because remember, we do not drive, we don't transport pre-K students other than the ones that are in our Head Start program. So a very small percentage of our population we provide transportation to. And that's an impediment for our population to get to our particular school. But you're correct. We need more pre-K. But I think in talking to the academic side and looking at where our students are located, right now that need's greater in the south end than it is necessarily in the north end.
Okay, thank you. Hold on one second, Ms. Tillman. Just want to, we were talking about the portables, and now we're getting into the bigger picture. So we're going to try to draw us back to the portables, okay? Because we're going to be talking about this a lot, okay? All right, Ms. Gray, Mr. Bourne, Dr. Jones.
just briefly, we as a board voted a couple of years ago, and just to be clear, portables are trailers. Because I've been on your talking points and people are like, are you talking about trailers? We are talking about trailers, and it really gives me a lot of heartburn to be putting more students in trailers. So I think it's incumbent upon all of us to really push to get the facilities and the additions and renovations that we need, because we really thought we had eliminated trailers 2 budgets ago. We put it out there. We said we want to get every child in a classroom. It's an unequal facility, and you know, that's my hope. It's sad that we're back here adding trailers. I know it's necessary, so I'm going to have to support it. But just to reiterate, we really do not like putting our children in trailers.
There's no return on the investment made, either leasing or buying portables. Anytime there's inclement weather like there is tonight, if this occurred during the school day, those students would have had been removed from the trailers and would have been either in the media center or the hallways inside their main school building. Those students in education today would have been severely impacted. When you think about the number of snow days we had this past year and what it was a year ago, and then think about the inclement weather we do encounter, those students that are in portables do get impacted. Their education gets impacted in a very negative way, and it's not one that I believe in. But right now, unfortunately, with 137 days, I just don't have any options, but it's something I'm totally against.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would echo my colleague, Ms. Gray's sentiments. I'm struggling with this one. I'm struggling to figure out whether or not I can support the administration on this, because this is a tough toad for me to swallow. And you know, I really am wrestling with this. I know it's necessary, but I think for all the reasons you just outlined, it's an option that I guess if the proverbial gun weren't to our heads, I probably wouldn't choose. So that's all I have to say, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Dr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Grants, we talked at my community meeting on last week over at Oak Grove, and you were mentioning to me something about this tilt-up construction. Would that be more of a long-term thing?
It would be, because I don't see Broad Rock will have in excess of 900 students next week. When we come on September 8th, Broad Rock will have in excess of 900 students. If our projections are right, Broad Rock will be approaching 1,000 students in the next couple of years. So if we did tilt-up construction, for example, at Broad Rock, once we do tilt-up construction, it's permanent. It's not like portables where you can't dismantle them and move them. Tilt-up construction is more like permanent construction, and it's a better program. It is something we will look at, for example, like at a Green, in some of the other schools where, based off of the facilities and the needs, there's some opportunities there. But Broad Rock, for example, it just doesn't fit just because of the number of students.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay,
Yes,
follow up, Mr. Bourne.
Just one clarifying thing. I think one of the things is getting the kids to and from the trailers, and so I presume that you'll situate them so that that time in and out of the trailer.
We're going to minimize the time, plus we'll also build ramps that are going to be covered. Something that we as a district have not done, it's something that I think we need to do. We'll build them with wood. They won't be of a metal structure, so it'll be something that can come down because they're not long-term, but we will build covered walkways for our students to help minimize their impact with the weather.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Saps.
And I think you and I had a discussion that, to the extent possible, these portable units will come with bathrooms inside them.
All of the portables will have bathrooms because of the location. It's not feasible to expect that we can take those students outside of those portables and bring them into school. The other thing we encounter with that is school doors are locked, and so getting those doors unlocked, there's time that our children, we just need to minimize the time that students are outside those portables, so we're going to be bringing bathrooms in each one.
Okay. Okay, question to close discussion, or can we just close discussion? All right, we'll just close discussion. Madam Clerk.
Motion. The motion was made by Mr. Sturdivant, seconded by Ms. Gray, to approve the lease of portables. Mr. Sturdivant?
Yes.
Ms. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Bourne?
Yes.
Mrs. Taylor?
Yes.
Mrs. Harris Mohammed?
Yes.
Dr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Pinckney Epps?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0. The next item is 6.07, receive for action the request for construction of a new recently designed ADA accessible elevator at Albert Hill Middle School.
This particular project is part of the post-settlement of the ADA agreement. This elevator will actually be constructed inside the middle of the school. It was not practical to go at either one of the two ends of the school because of distance. We would have ended up looking at two elevators instead of one. This elevator project will cost an amount not to exceed $1 million. We will do the bulk of the work during the summer here, so that once the school year starts, we'll be doing some touch-up items and fine-tuning it with the opening date sometime in September. But with this approval tonight, we can begin construction in a very timely manner.
So moved.
Second.
Move to second. Any discussion on this? Ms. Taylor.
Can you tell me how old Albert Hill is? The building?
If I'm not mistaken, it's 60 years old, 60 or 65, if I'm not mistaken.
Is that old?
It actually may be a little, because Thomas Jefferson is my oldest comprehensive high school, but I think Albert Hill is about 60 years old. But I'm not going to swear to it. There's a lot of these numbers go through my head.
Okay. So is the age of the building going to be a factor?
No, ma'am. That building's very sound, structurally designed. We've looked at putting it in the middle. The building can hold it. The loads can hold it very well. And it'll fit very nicely inside the way that building's designed for us. It'll come out very nice. You'll be very impressed with how we end up finishing it off.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Larson.
Just for clarification for board members, this was a discussion that we had with the plaintiff as we were wrapping up the settlement, and there has been 2 chairlifts at Albert Hill, and they both have burned through. And so the building is not set up to accommodate a chairlift in a long term. Is that?
Chairlifts are limited in the load that they can handle.
Mm-hmm.
We burned up the chairlifts because we've exceeded the maximum capacity on those lifts. The other thing about a chairlift is it's not the most secure means of transporting somebody up there, and an elevator is the best means of transporting students from one floor to another.
So this was the most costly post-settlement project that we had.
Correct.
To complete as we wrapped it up.
Yes, ma'am.
Follow up, Ms. Taylor.
Are you familiar with the West Hampton that used to house Richmond Community before
No, ma'am.
they relocated?
No, ma'am.
Yeah, I wonder if there's anyone on staff. Well, when the community was in this original West Hampton location, I don't know if the ADA, if the lawsuit was in effect at that time, but I know one of the main reasons they had those students, that the school itself relocate, was because of the placement of an elevator in that building. And basically saying that it wasn't cost effective, especially with the number of empty seats that we have in the district. Is it a consideration? Have you all considered at all relocating Albert Hill students to cut that $1 million cost into other seats throughout the district?
And it's something that we did look at as part of the facility needs. With the there's 4 middle schools north of the river, with Benford having about 350 empty seats. Albert Hill right now has about 50 empty seats. However, over the next 10 years, is projected to grow to basically flip it to where they're 50 over their capacity. Henderson is a building that's currently sitting at about 50% and is projected over 10 years to remain at that 50% number. And then MLK is sitting at almost 100% and projected to remain at close to 100% capacity. Hill and Henderson combined doesn't have enough capacity to meet the two. The other challenge in bringing Hill into Henderson is that Henderson in that open concept, the renovation cost would be fairly substantial to, to build the walls, to make it in a closed classroom setting. So we looked at it, we didn't believe that that was financially feasible going forward. But yes, ma'am, we did look at that.
Is that something we would do anyway, though? Close those walls out for the students who are currently housed?
Yes, ma'am. I mean, that would be something that in our renovation costs that we laid in our facility needs is there. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, that's a dedicated funding source.
Thank you, Dr.
That's a dedicated funding source that we have to spend.
On the ADA project, yes, sir, we have to spend it on just ADA money. It can't be used on the Henderson project. I didn't think that's where you were coming from.
I was just saying that if the building was closed, then you wouldn't need to spend the money on the building that was no longer in existence. The same thing as the West Hampton. When we relocated those students, you didn't have the need for the elevator, so the $1 million cost went away.
But if the $1 million, let's say the $1 million cost went away, the $1 million can only be spent on ADA project. So the putting walls up in Henderson doesn't meet the ADA rules and regulations. So I couldn't spend that $1 million to put walls up.
Oh, no.
Okay. Mr. Krantz and Ms. Taylor, once again, we digress away to these larger issues. We're dealing with the elevator here, and let's stick to the elevator. Thank you very much, as we have colleagues screaming. All right, so any more discussion on the elevator? Close the discussion. Madam Clerk.
The motion, the motion was made by Mr. Sturdivant and seconded by Dr. Jones to approve the request for construction of a new, recently designed ADA accessible elevator at Albert Hill Middle School. Mr. Sturdivant?
Yes.
Ms. Gray? Yes. Mr. Bourne?
Yes.
Mrs. Taylor?
No.
Mrs. Harris Mohammed?
Yes.
Dr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Pinckney Epps?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-1.
Okay, we had one board member request a short break, but if we notice we are right at the end of our agenda, do we need a break or can we just press through? I'm assuming that the majority is saying we want to press through.
Do we have a closed session?
One item and close.
Okay.
I think we can press through.
Can we press through until closed?
Okay. Can we press through, madam? This is correct. All right, thank you very much. Okay, Madam Clerk.
The next item is 6.08, receive for action budget transfers.
Mr. Chairman, board members, you have a couple of significant transfers here and there. They are a reflection of the information we just reviewed about the year-end projection. First one is exceptional education, requesting $1.2 million to be transferred from the various compensation accounts to cover that deficit that we were just projecting there for several of the contract items that they have to cover. And another one is the Patrick Henry. And that came about as a result of last year when we approved the budget, and the amount that was approved for Patrick Henry had not included the city's subsequent full funding of the budget request of $4.4 million. And so when we added that and the additional number of students, they realized we owed them this additional amount of money. We put the calculation sheet behind it so you can see how the amount of money that's owed to them, $327,128, is to rise. Other than that, they're routine transfers, unless you have questions.
Quick question. The 1.2 million that's being requested as a transfer for exceptional ed, from your previous presentation, you said that all monies have to be spent by May 1st, and then, well, June 1st is the cutoff date. So that's for contractual services?
Well, no, I mean, there are going to be, services are going to continue being incurred in the month of June, even though we won't pay until July and August. So this is, and when we project those balances, it's accounting for those items as well.
So I'm just curious, what is the total budget for those contractual services? And is it reasonable to think that we would spend that amount between today and
Yes,
June
based
1st?
on last year's experience, what we actually did spend, it's right on track with repeating itself.
So we're spending over $1 million a month?
No, this is an accumulation and projection. A lot of these bills come in at the end of the year for services rendered in the prior months.
So they're
It's
not
for
ongoing?
services just for that month, no ma'am.
Do you understand why I'm asking? Because it seems as if we are contracting from the beginning of the school year in September until now, we would be getting monthly bills or
Some of them
quarterly.
don't come in monthly. That's part of the nature of the cycle of it. So some of these don't come in that manner.
Okay. All right.
Okay, Ms. Epps.
Ms. Westby, several places on here, it speaks to progressive therapy. In particular, what type of services are we paying for here?
Let Dr. Boyd speak to the specifics of that.
Progressive is one of our companies that provides speech and language therapists for us.
Okay, the menu use services, amending fences, the new ride cap, what type of services do they?
Behavioral aids.
Are these those one-to-ones?
Yes. But don't confuse one-to-one behavioral aids written in the IEP with day treatment providers that some students have through Medicaid. Different.
So which ones did we potentially, we don't use anymore? I thought there was a point in time when we said we didn't have any more one-to-ones.
We couldn't say that and blanket it because that's an IEP team decision to talk about the level of supports the students need in their IEP as a result of their disability.
So we are still using behavioral aids.
Some of our students do have one-to-one adult supports, whether it's a behavioral aid or whether it's an instructional assistant, yes ma'am, but that's dictated by the IEP.
Okay, Mr. Bourne.
One quick question. I don't believe this is the first time we've seen a budget transfer for contracted services like this. And if we know each year that these are services we can't hire people to provide them, why wouldn't we just ultimately, at the front end, set up our budget to contract for these services and do away with the positions? I mean,
Well, ideally, and we talked about this probably a couple of months ago, it's more efficient in terms of a fiscal impact, but also in terms of quality of staff, building capacity within a division to have an actual, for example, speech language pathologist. We would prefer to have those persons on staff full-time. We would pay them less, and they kind of have that additional buy-in because they are an RPS staff member. And so we're continuing to seek out those supports and working diligently, and we're hoping to have some more traction now that we have a special ed staffing coordinator. But if we're not able to garner those resources, then we have to have the contracted services as a backup plan.
Okay. Ms.
Just quickly, as board members, can we make requests for budget transfers at one particular school, at a school?
You mean for you to transfer your funds?
If necessary, but if, according to these reports, there are funds at the schools. There's one school who says the teachers are saying they don't have paper. If the principal hasn't taken on the responsibility to ask for that transfer, Can it come from the administration?
No, that's something that as I emailed you that Dr. Leonard is following up on to handle it. That needs to be pointed out. He's going to hold that principal accountable for why is that not happening. Because if you have money in your account, then why is the teacher saying you don't have it?
Okay.
So what you did was point it out to her, to us. That's part of the fiduciary responsibility of administrative practice that we have to hold them accountable for as part of the evaluation or not.
Okay.
Okay.
You have a motion, Mr. Chairman?
We need a motion.
So moved.
Move to second. Madam Clerk.
The motion was made by Mr. Sturdivant and seconded by Mr. Bourne to approve budget transfers. Mr. Sturdivant?
Yes.
Ms. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Bourne?
Yes.
Mrs. Taylor?
No.
Mrs. Harris Mohammed? Dr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Pinckney Epps?
I'm going to abstain.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Motion passed 6 ayes, 1 no, and 2 abstentions. The next item is 6.09, receive for action, human resources actions.
The recommended Human Resources Department actions for this meeting include the HR actions for approval to include the nomination of 3 employees and the change of contract of 1 employee, and HR actions for information to include the resignation of 1 employee and the retirement of 31 employees.
So moved. Second.
Move to second. Anything here that needs to be discussed and closed? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
The motion was made by Mr. Bourne, seconded by Mr. Sturdivant to approve the HR actions. Mr. Sturdivant? Ms. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Bourne?
Yes.
Mrs. Taylor? Mrs. Harris Mohammed? Dr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Pinckney Epps?
Abstain.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Motion passes 6 with 3 abstentions. The next item is 7, the consent agenda. I just ask that you approve the minutes of your February 28, 2014 and your March 7, 2015 meetings, and those minutes have been distributed. I have not received anything, so I just ask they be approved.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Taylor.
I know that that meeting was a short meeting. I guess my question was, why was it on the same packet as the draft from this year? So you're going from February of 2014 and you're jumping all the way to Tuesday, March 17, 2015.
We are still working on minutes to get them caught up, and Ms. Friend is working on current meeting minutes. So as we get your past minutes done, we are bringing them forward, and she is trying to stay current.
Okay. It just seems like a huge jump. And also, I noticed that there wasn't any real specificity in that. So could I just get a copy of the audio that went along with this?
I'm sorry, which audio?
28th of February, 2014.
The 2014 may not be online. The 2014, Ms. Taylor.
February of 2014.
I will make a note of your request.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Closed discussion? All right. Madam Clerk.
It's a consent agenda.
Go ahead, yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Sturdivant?
Yes.
Ms. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Bourne?
Yes.
Mrs. Taylor?
No.
Mrs. Harris Mohammed? Dr. Jones? Mrs. Pinckney Epps?
Abstain.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Motion passes 7 yes, 1 no, and 1 abstention. There are no informational items under item 8. Item 9 is new business.
Dr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Very quickly, just 2 things. I'm doing a series of community meetings relative to the overcrowding in elementary schools south of the river. We did one at Oak Grove on last week. My colleague Mr. Bourne for coming out. We're going to do another one in Broad Rock on Thursday at 6. And And so anyone who wants to come, please do. The second thing relates to my colleague in the 9th District. About 6 months ago, a little more than 6 months ago, a mistake was made relative to the handling of privileged information. Ms. Epps acknowledged the fact that she made a mistake. This board sent an unprecedented message by censuring her. The message was sent, and I believe the message was received. I do, however, believe that the censure was not meant to be eternal. And I think that the season for that censure should come to an end because we have one of our players on the bench who needs to get back in the game. And so tonight I would like to make a motion that we lift the censure and allow Ms. Epps to resume committee assignments.
Second.
Move to second. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, Ms. Epps.
I would say to my colleagues, and as you decide how you will vote on the removal of this censure, that I've had an opportunity to reflect on the severity of how my conduct may have negatively impacted those students that I was not seeking, to help. But as I look at us as a board, I'd like consideration that I am a contributing member to this board, and in light of some of the difficulties that we're having to staff the discipline committee, I've had an opportunity to share with the chair that there'll be no more of my, renegade behavior in an attempt to help any student outside of the parameters that are set by the discipline committee. And so I would like for you all to consider that I'm here to help. I'm here to be a part of moving this district forward, and I'd appreciate it if you would vote to remove this censure.
At this point, I want to ask legal to bring us some clarity in our language. And Dr. Jones, you may want to hear what she's saying on this. Okay, sure.
As far as the actions the board took at that time, there were a couple of things that were done. There was a censure because there was a resolution that attached to that, and the board in that also removed Ms. Epps from committees, removed her from the appointment of any committees. And so the censure in and of itself has taken place. And so you can't, I don't see it as removing the censure, but the second action that the board took with respect to removing from committees, certainly that is up to board, decision as to whether she would be reappointed to committees. But I would submit that the censure, because it was in the record and because the record contains that it was done, that action still is the action. The censure is the action, but the additional step was the board removing Ms. Epps from committees as well. So that action is subject to board, board,
Sure.
a vote to whether that is reversed. Unless you're reversing the actual action of the censure, which is, I don't think that that's what you're doing.
The main goal is to have her resume committee responsibility.
So would you like to withdraw the motion you made and make a fresh motion?
I'm happy to do that.
All right.
I'm happy to withdraw.
Okay. What's the motion now?
And I would like to make a motion that Ms. Pinckney Epps be allowed to resume committee activities as a participating member of the Richmond School Board.
Second.
Discussion, Mr. Bourne.
I certainly appreciate Dr. Jones' motion and to lift some restrictions that one of our board members, I think in all of our minds, sort of rightfully earned. I appreciate Ms. Pinkney-Epps, and I'll take her at her word, acknowledging the severity, which, and I'm not going to say anything I hadn't said to her already, which I think was absent in the initial round of apologies. And so I'm willing to, because we are a society of second chances, I'm willing to support a second chance. I think what I would like to see in order to do that, or are there some things that we can do to strengthen our ability to ensure that this doesn't happen again. And it's not just for her, it's for all of us that get these records or any sensitive records electronically. Put some safeguards in place so that not only we have a comfort level that the likelihood or the opportunity to do this again is decreased exponentially, but also I think do what we can to allay probably some fears that the people we serve might still continue to have about these things. So I don't know whether Dr. Jones would agree or what, but I would ask that we ask our administration to come back with some technological or some policy or procedural safeguards that we can make and take it up as a comprehensive idea at our next school board meeting.
Okay, as the chair, I will work on that to help us. Actually, it worked because the records were not actually breached, but I can work with administration to follow up on that. Okay.
That's just what I was going to speak to, the fact that the system was able to
Thank you so much.
in a timely fashion. So
That's correct.
the safeguards seem to already be in place.
That's correct. But we'll reassure the board on that. Okay? All right.
Mr. Cole.
Ms. Muhammad?
So I just don't see why we need to prolong allowing her back on committees to wait for that to happen.
No.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That's what I was suggesting.
You were suggesting?
Yes.
You suggesting that we, okay.
So we have the full complement of information to make a really informed decision.
Mr. Gardner, I see you in the room. Could you come forward, please, for a second?
And I just don't think this is something we should do on the fly. I've already indicated my support to her that here publicly, that provided we can have some attempt at additional safeguards.
Okay. Mr. Gardner, do you recall this situation?
Yes, sir, I do.
Would you speak to our security measures as far as anything being breached?
Well, nothing was breached due to the system's balance and checks. It makes sure that anyone who tries to access the data do have the actual ability based on their domain name and based on who the sender gives authorization to actually review the documents. So when the sender will designate who shall have access to the records, anyone who tries to access the records that are not on the list that the sender uses when they created the document will not allow them to access the information.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay, all right. Ms. Gray, Mrs. Sturdivant.
Okay, I just have a quick comment, because, in church we get second chances. God is always ultimately forgiving and graceful. But in professional settings, if this had been a teacher, an office worker, anybody on any level that breached a record, they would have been terminated, because it's such a high risk to share student information, and we are held to a higher obligation than our staff and personnel. So I do not see, and we've had the same security procedures in place. I do not see a way to avoid. If I wanted to share a record, I could call somebody on the phone and read the information to them. I could take my iPad and let them read it. So I don't know how, any way, you could ensure that, short of knowing that a person understands the severity and they're not going to do it. But if you've done it already and it's something we would terminate an employee for, I do not understand how we could have that kind of forgiveness for one of our own. I don't think it would be a rehire conversation or let's get a second chance if it were an employee of Richmond Public Schools.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Gray. Mr. Sterling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate and agree with the sentiments of Mr. Bourne about second chances. I also agree with the comments made by Ms. Gray about accountability. And I think Mr. Bourne had a good idea of having the administration come back to us at a next meeting or a meeting in the future with a way to put more constraints in place, more protections in place as part of the larger conversation about this. And the other issue for me is making this decision on the fly tonight at 9 p.m. I didn't know this motion was going to be made, and it's the sort of thing I'd like to have the opportunity to sleep on at the very least.
Okay, Mr. Bourne, were you trying to make a friendly amendment?
Well, I mean, certainly if Dr. Jones treats my amendment as friendly, then yes, but if he doesn't, then I simply would have to make a substitute motion or another motion.
Well, with all due respect to my colleagues on the other end, it's my preference to go ahead and put my motion.
Okay. On the question, Madam Clerk. This is the closed discussion.
Go ahead. Yeah. Call the question. No. Questions.
Ms. Harris Muhammad called the question, but there was no second. Is there?
Second.
There you go.
And this is to close discussion. Mr. Sturdivant?
Yes.
Ms. Gray? Yes. Mr. Bourne?
Yes.
Mrs. Taylor?
Yes.
Mrs. Harris Muhammad?
Yes.
Dr. Jones? Mrs. Pinckney Epps?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson? Yes. Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
It is unanimous. The motion on the floor was made by Dr. Jones, seconded by Mrs. Taylor, that Mrs. Pinckney Epps be allowed to resume committee activities as a member of the Richmond School Board. Mr. Sturdivant?
No, this is to close.
This is to vote on Dr. Jones' original motion to allow her to resume
No.
committees.
Mr. Sterling? We couldn't hear you.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Gray?
No.
Mr. Bourne?
You come back to Mr. Bourne.
Mrs. Taylor?
Yes.
Mrs. Harris Muhammad?
Yes.
Dr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Pinckney Epps?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson? No. Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Bourne?
I think without the plan of safeguards, no.
Motion passed 5-4. You are still in new business.
Ms. Muhammad?
I just wanted to first apologize to everyone in front of me for eating. My sugar level was dropping. The second thing is reminding you all of the Teacher Appreciation Dance to be held May the 1st at the downtown Hilton from 7 to 11. It is an all-white affair. So I'm hoping that you will share with, and it's open to everybody in the district, not just teachers, but everybody that's employed by RPS. So I'm hoping that we can have a great number of representatives from each department that support our staff and our students in RPS. Thank you so very much.
Okay, Ms. Taylor.
As
Some of you may know if you follow me on Facebook, I was putting together a Welcome to the 5th District for Elkhart students into the Clark Springs building, but due to the inclement weather back-to-back with all the snow and frigid temperatures, it had to be delayed. And I just want to update you all, especially those of you who are in the media, that that will be taking place prior to the SOL testing. So we'll turn into a heart-to-heart pep rally / you can do a great job on that pending upcoming SOL exams. So that is going to take place. Also, I am putting together a father, daughter, mother, son dance in some of the 5th District elementary schools combination. So stay tuned for more details on that. In addition, as a member of the Richmond Coalition for Quality Education, we have been fortunate to be able to do a great deal of fundraising, of which we have plans to award 3 $1,000 scholarships for high school seniors who have kept their GPAs and showed that they're taking their education very seriously. And I will be having discussions with the coalition, and we will decide and have conversations with the administration as to how those scholarships will be distributed. And see if there's anything else. I think that's enough. So stay tuned for more details, and remember, it's all about the children.
Ms. Evans.
On Friday, May the 1st, same day, Teacher Appreciation Day, there will be a blood drive at the Elkhart Clark Springs location. For those of you who are not squeamish, please, there's an opportunity. It's coming through the Red Cross. There's an opportunity for you to sign up and give blood on that day. All that Ms. Harris Muhammad has asked is that you go get blood on your right outfit that evening. There will be information in your boxes starting next week.
Okay, just want to give a shout out to, we had several students from Martin Luther King and a teacher from Martin Luther King on Saturday at the Put Kids First rally, who did a fabulous job of standing up and asking for support for young people. And I was proud to be there to see them carry out that function.
We appreciate you representing us at the Put Kids First rally, Mr. Coleman.
I had to be
Ms. Harris Muhammad,
incognito.
Ms. Gray, and I were holding it down in the disciplinary committee.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, we appreciate it. Y'all did a great job. Okay, this is absolutely, thank you very much, Madam Clerk.
The next item is closed. Someone to reach me.
Pursuant to Section 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia.
Ms. Gray? There's some wording. Thank you, though.
Okay.
Pursuant to Section 2.2-3711A, 1 of the Code of Virginia, 1950 as amended, I move that the school board of the City of Richmond convene in closed session to 1, discuss prospective candidates for employment and the assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific public officers or employees of the division, including consideration of the human resources agenda of this date and employee matters number 1415-40.
Moved by Dr. Jones, second by Mr. Boone. Go into close.
You okay?
All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? You are now in closed.